Good evening. My name is Toby Sisson, and I'm here with a panel of artists and arts administrators from Worcester's Black community. We're in conversation today to increase the visibility, understanding, and appreciation of Black art in Worcester. Our host and sponsor is ArtsWorcester, an organization that has engaged artists and the public to advance and celebrate contemporary art for over 40 years. Thank you all for joining us. I'll facilitate our conversation with questions for our panelists about their involvement with Black art in Worcester and beyond. If time permits, we'll try to take a few questions from the audience towards the end of the hour. Please post them in the chat feature, and if we're unable to address your questions, they will help inform future conversations. First, let's start with introductions. Again, my name is Toby Sisson, and I'm an artist and associate professor and director of the Studio Art program at Clark University. In addition to drawing, painting, and printmaking, my work includes community-based service learning and collaborative public art projects. My creative research focuses on issues of history, place, and identity within the context of race and ethnicity. I exhibit my work nationally with works in public and private collections, most recently at Brown University and the Worcester Art Museum. Our first panelist that I'm introducing is Gloria Hall. Gloria is a preservationist and public and cultural arts administrator. Originally from Georgia, her interest in art is ancestral and directly related to her interest in cultural history. As director of the former Willis Center's Cultural Institute, she commissioned artwork by Blacks from the African diaspora for annual festival posters, curated and installed exhibits of African sculptures and other artwork by Black Americans related to the theme of Black hair, and curated visual, musical, and dance interpretations of the Black national anthem, James Weldon Johnson's Lift Every Voice and Sing. In 2008, Gloria initiated, with the support of other commissioners, Art in the Park Worcester, an exhibit of large-scale sculptures in historic Elm Park. Next, we have Jennifer Davis Carey. Jennifer Carey is a native New Yorker, Brooklyn specifically, and has been a resident of Worcester since 1988. She was drawn to the arts as a result of visits to New York's museums and classes at Pratt Institute as a child. Her primary medium is enameling. Her interest in this area began when she was gifted a small table kiln when she was 11 years old. More recently, she has honed her skills through classes at the Worcester Art Museum, the Worcester Center for Crafts, and a variety of workshops across the country. Her work has been recognized by a fellowship from the Worcester Arts Council and a material needs grant through ArtsWorcester. Also joining us is Nicole Coleman. Nicole Coleman is a Worcester-born artist and organizer with a passion for her community. Black art entered her life at a young age through Black music, filmmakers, actors, and actresses. Though most of the out-of-the-box and trailblazers that she's looked up to, she's found inspiration to pave her own path as an artist. She has spent most of her career working as an on-set makeup artist, stylist, art director, and prop artist. Her career in the beauty and film industries has taken her to the mecca of Black creativity, New York City, and even out west to Southern California, where she's been able to expand her horizons and gain new perspectives on what it means to be a Black artist. Nicole's work as a special FX artist has been recognized by major horror publications, Rue Morgue and Fangoria, and she has multiple IMDb credits under her belt. Her paintings had primarily remained within the confines of set design until this year, when she was invited to participate in the BLM Mural project for the city of Worcester. Now that she's rooted back home in her city, she has set forth to spread awareness and togetherness through the arts. And we have William Thompson. William Thompson was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, where his early interest in drawing led him to study art and design at Erasmus Hall High School for the Arts. He went on to the Repertory Company High School for the Arts in Manhattan, studying photography, painting, and sculpture, as well as attending classes at the Brooklyn Museum while creating graffiti for galleries as well as street murals. As a resident of Worcester for 27 years, Williams' artistry also contributed to painting the city's Black Lives Matter mural and a slew of other spaces in the area, including work with Powwow Worcester in 2017. Thank you, panelists, for bringing your expertise and unique perspective to this dialogue, what Black art means to me. I have questions for each of you, and I look forward to a lively conversation. I'd like to begin with a question for Nicole, and then I'll have individual questions for Jennifer, Gloria, and William. So Nicole, starting with you, can you tell us why you think conversations like this are important?
Thank you, Toby. Thank you for the lovely introductions. I believe that conversations like this are important because Black art is such a spectrum, and there's so many different mediums and ways to express yourself through the avenue of art. And so just I feel like this panel in general is a true representation of just how vast Black art really is and everything that is encompassed within Black art. And I think these conversations help people to learn and expand their minds as to what it means, because if you don't learn, then you don't grow.
Absolutely, I agree. Next, I'd like to move on to Jennifer. I have a question for you, Jennifer. You're a Black artist, but not all of your art falls into your definition of Black art. Can you talk about that a little bit? Can you help define
Sure, and thank you also, Toby, for that nice introduction. I guess from my perspective, Black art is art that is either rooted in or makes reference to the experience of Blacks, either in the United States or elsewhere in the diaspora, or also in Africa. And that it is art that makes that reference and is rooted in a personal experience of that. So while many of my pieces are rooted in that way, not all of them are. So I feel like when I am, like one of the images that's in the PowerPoint is an image of horses. That was part of a series that I was working on a number of years ago related to the art of the, related to cave art. And so not specifically rooted in that experience. So while I produced it, and because I'm a Black woman, I don't, however, necessarily consider that Black art. And for me, Black art is art, again, that speaks to the experience of or the history of Black people.
Excellent, thank you. And my next question is for Gloria. Is Black art the domain of Black artists? That sort of feeds off of what Jennifer was saying. What are you thinking about that?
And thank you for the introduction as well. Well, all art, I think, is cultural. And so I do think that Black art is the domain for Black artists. I do think that, and I think that my opinion about it is informed by when I kind of came of age. I came of age at a time when embracing Africa as heritage and Black is beautiful, that was just that was just a way of being. And so, and you will see Africa on display everywhere. And so I think that just kind of informs my opinion as to who is going to be doing the art. I'm gonna turn the phone off. Yeah, so. I'll leave it at that. Okay.
So if you lost your train of thought, I can restate the question if you'd like to just sort of.
Let me turn this phone off. I'm sorry.
Okay. Maybe I'll ask our moderator to go ahead and mute Gloria, and then we're going to move on, but we will come back to Gloria so she gets an opportunity to respond more fully. So actually, my next question was for William. So William, what's the most significant thing for you about your decades of creating art in Worcester? And you'll have to unmute. I see you're muted as well.
Okay, can you hear me?
Absolutely, I can hear you perfectly.
Hello, Toby. Hello, ladies. Hello, panel.
Good to see you, William.
I think the BLM, of any and all things, the BLM mural was of most significance. First and foremost, I did it with 5 other of my friends. Secondly, I got to meet a vast amount of people, and then amongst that vast, there were other artists that I got a chance to meet who I have never met for other reasons, who got the keys to the city with us and us with them. So we did this together. And had it not been for the BLM, this wouldn't be here, I don't think, which is totally significant because now we're discussing what Black art means. And I think for a long time, it was maybe overlooked. I don't know if that's a good choice of words, but today, this is the result of all of that. And I appreciate all you ladies and everyone else viewing, because had it not been for the BLM, it'd have obviously been something entirely different here.
Yeah, that's a great point, and thank you for sharing that. I'm going to circle back to Gloria and just sort of restate, because I think you got cut off unnecessarily, Gloria, and I want you to get a chance to respond fully. So what I was asking you was whether or not you thought Black art was the domain of Black artists, and you could think about that in terms of, is it exclusively the domain of Black artists or not? Was there more that you wanted to say?
Yes. Yes, I do think it is the domain of Black art. I do think that Black art is the domain of Black artists, in part because of, you know, as I had said, that all art is cultural. And so the expression, the creative expression comes out of the Black experience. And that's the Black experience that is that experience of any Black artist who is from the African diaspora, meaning that it is, you know, Blacks in the US, Blacks in the Caribbean. There are actually Blacks in parts of India as well. So yeah, I do think that it is the domain. As I was thinking about, you know, Black art, the only place that I come up in terms of an art form where I question whether or not, you know, Black art is, Black art is in photography. Because I have seen some amazing photographers and pictures and images of Black Americans that were done by white artists, and I enjoy them and I like them a lot. And there seems to be a kind of caring presentation of the artist. Now, that is not true for all artists, but I have seen that of all of the art forms, photography is the one where there's a little bit of a gray area, if that makes sense and stuff. So, but in general, I think it's the domain of Black artists.
Thank you. Um, I also have some questions here that I want to open up to the whole group so that maybe we can have a dialogue or a conversation, and I welcome question and answer back and forth or responses or elaborations from any one of the panelists on these questions. So actually the first thing I want to ask and pose for all of you is, what has art done to help you process the difficulties and the joys of the Black experience in America? So you can think about that in terms of your own work or the work that you are engaged with as an arts administrator. What has that process of being with art or creating art done for you in terms of grappling with the joys and the difficulties of being a Black American? And I open this up to anyone. Would anyone like to start the dialogue?
I'm still trying to process that question because that's such a broad brush.
Well, let me rephrase it. I'll break it down a little bit.
No, you don't have to rephrase it, Toby. I get it. It's just processing it because it's so much. Like, so I'll start with this. The art of graffiti is a total Black urban art form. I've been entirely engulfed in graffiti my entire life. I was born and raised in New York City in 75. So by the time 78, 79, 80 came around, New York was engulfed with it. So just that aspect alone has been my entire life. So the process is, for me, I've been able, it allowed me to be able to paint any and everywhere. It took me so many different places where maybe just quote unquote, maybe Black art, quote unquote, would never have. So that experience alone is incredible. That experience alone helped me get into the art schools. That experience alone helped me teach my nephew how to draw, teach my nephew how to paint, to the point where he was getting job offers at Marvel. So to process all of that, it made me proud as a family member. It made me proud that I had a skill. It's a skill. And my grandmother was big on skills. My grandparents entirely, they were big on having a skill set. So it led into every facet of my life. So to process all of it is I'm today's extension of that, period. I'm still putting out artwork. I'm doing a dumpster for autism, like right now. We're still painting. We're painting the bridge right now. I process this every day. I don't know how else anyone else can put that.
Mm-hmm. So it seems very much that you're telling us that this is a part of your life, that it's inseparable. There's no way to separate the joy or the sorrow or what your life as an artist is. It's your lived experience.
It is a little convoluted. It is a little convoluted because my art gave me and my mother a different relationship. It gave my parents and I a different relationship because they started to treat me as a business. My mother would pay me, and then when I would say no, she taught me the significance of a skill and business, and how to respect your art, and how you should have your art, your skill respected by others, no matter who they are, entirely, period. From my mother, grandparents, all the way up and all the way down. Mm-hmm. So it's a convoluted facet for me. It taught me business. It taught me health. It taught me creativity, obviously. And it taught me some type of balance, because too much is no good and too little is no good.
Yes. Let me see if any of the other panelists have something to add on to that. So I very much relate to what William is saying about it being generational, about there being no separation between art and life. I feel very much the same way, although I didn't come from a family of artists. Some of you were influenced generationally. Any thoughts that you'd like to share on that?
I guess one of the things I would like to share is one of the things that inspires my work is our shared history as people of African descent in the United States. And so sometimes my work, and there are several bodies of work where I have tried to contextualize and make visual and part of a greater narrative experiences of that Blacks in this country have had as a people. So I'll use the example. Right now I'm working on a series that I'm actually struggling with because I'm finding the material challenging. And that is a group of photographs was just released in a book by Harvard University, by the Peabody Museum. And it is a group of photographs that were taken in the 19th century by Louis Agassiz, who was a ethnographer. I would call him a self-styled ethnographer, who wanted to travel through the South to document images of enslaved people, to demonstrate that Black people were a different species and had descended from a different line of humanity. The photographs are very jarring, and the faces of the individuals who are photographed to me all indicate or show what their experience of that moment was. So I'm trying to, in this series, do two things. One is to add dignity to a situation that had stripped these people of dignity, but also make this material more public in a way that allows us and allows me to be able to process it, and hopefully allows others to be able to process it and access it also. I also think of, to jump off of William's earlier comments, the Black Lives Matter mural to me was a very powerful experience. And although I was not one of the artists, I had to be there. Whether it was to give out water on that day or to pick up a brush and do, paint background, or to do, to help with doing the lines to lay out the work. But I knew that I needed to be a part of that to process this moment for me personally, but also to be a part of this moment publicly. So in some ways, it is both private work that I'm doing for myself, but also public work that I'm doing to contextualize, and as I said, to make this work part of a narrative that's greater than ourselves, that's greater than this moment, and greater than that particular moment in history.
Yes, wonderful. Nicole, did you want to add anything to that conversation or talk about your engagement with the BLM mural?
In terms of how art has helped me, process, I think, just life in this Black skin I find encased around my body. It's hard to put into words what it's like to be born Black in America. You're not really given like a handbook of what you're really going to experience. And it starts at a very young age. To me, having anxiety at a very young age, Black art was my sanctuary. In my slides, you saw a still of Michael Jackson from The Making of Thriller and Prince from Purple Rain. Those were my heroes. I was really weird. I was like a total film comic nerd at a very young age. Not things that most Black children were typically in.
I was too.
that's,
Still
that's
are.
yeah, that's why me and you are kindred spirits, William. So, I was teased a lot for being into things that weren't thought of at the time as being traditionally like the Black things to be into. And having people like Michael Jackson and Prince and Grace Jones to look up to, that were just these all-encompassing performance artists, and they wanted to make films, and they wanted to act, and they wanted to do music. They weren't just they weren't like one trick ponies. They were like, we're going to do this and that's going to be it, and then that's my lane. It's like, I'm a creative, I'm going to do whatever comes to me. If I want to paint myself a crazy color and do some stage show, I'm going to do that. With
Total
Prince,
empowerment.
Total empowerment. Prince blurring gender lines was so huge to me. I was like, how do I embody that in my own life? It was incredibly empowering and freeing. And, through all that's happened in, my lifetime, and especially this year, I don't know where I would be, or if I would have any semblance of like safety and comfort if it wasn't for the Black artists that I grew up looking up towards, and still can look upon them and say, well, you did this, and you went through all of this adversity, and you still were brave enough to just be yourself and to use art as a sanctuary. How do I do that, and how do I encourage others to do that, especially those who are living the Black experience in America? Because art is so incredibly healing, and it's hard to put into words, because it really it's freeing, unlike anything else I've ever experienced in life. And I think for a young Black woman growing up in a city that was very tumultuous with racial issues, even back in the 80s, and still seeing a lot of that now, art saved my life. It did. So
Mine too.
yeah.
Well, let's pick up that thread and go a little further with it. What were some of your earliest influences? I know I've heard you talk about the lineage with family, and what's happened more recently around the Black Lives Matter mural. Were there particular Black artists that you look to, that you model yourself after, or that you carry as inspiration within you to keep moving forward? Are there any particular names or histories, or an exhibition you can remember seeing, or a piece of artwork that you saw that you picked up on? What were some of the earliest influences that you had?
Talking to me, Toby?
To any and all. So you can jump on it first if you like. Yes.
Oh, Michael Jackson. First and foremost, okay, Michael Jackson was one of them. She hit it, and Prince. So Michael Jackson was so influential to me. I took that white suit and went to my goddaughter's christening in that white suit. Okay. Like, I was a child, and adolescent. I didn't even hit double digits at the time. I remember that because they never let me forget it. Because my sister growing up, so my sister's the oldest, and she was a Marine, and she was a really no joke, no nonsense kind of lady, kind of like my mother. Not kind of, but just like my mother. Real disciplined. And when she and I hung out, she would teach me every song that the Jackson 5 did. Like, she would just teach it to me and make me learn these songs. And I grew up learning these songs. I grew up learning the artwork, the footwork, the dance work, the backgrounds, like the makeup, everything. And she, it was incredible. Like, so to just sidestep that, Prince, great artist. Even when he took the name Prince and dropped it going through the Warner Brother situation with his record label, he showed artists that you don't even have to rely on your name It's you as a soul being that can continue to create. Your name can be whatever it is, and they can do whatever they want to your name, but they can't take you. So entirely, he took the name artist formerly known as Prince, as it's like this big. It was the whole thing. Like he allowed people and our people to know that let them have it, but you can fight in other ways. You can get your dignity. You can keep your growth. You can keep your name without having to keep the wording to it. You can keep your soul.
Mhm.
And you don't have to sell it, even if your name is attached to it, because your name is everything. Your name is the only thing you go to your grave with. Your
So-
name is everything.
Yeah, so popular cultural influences like Michael Jackson and Prince. Are there other names that come to mind? Gloria or Jennifer, if you'd like to weigh in.
Yeah, I guess from the artists that have influenced me most have been visual artists. I am struck that, you know, my colleagues who are younger than I am have been so influenced by the music industry and by performing artists and how that's affected their visual art. That to me is very intriguing. But for me, it has been actually three people. Romery Broaden, who is a Black artist who a lot of his work is in the area of collage. And his work has always intrigued me because in it, there are so many visual metaphors and references to the Black community and so much detail in his work that every time I look at one of his pieces, I see something different. The other is Aaron Douglas, and particularly his work related to James Weldon Johnson's work, God's Trombone, and how he was able to take a piece of literature and translate that into the visual arts. I also think is fascinating. And his use of color and form and gesture in his lines, I find very interesting. The other person, less well known, although at the age of 90, she just got her first show at the Museum of Modern Art last year, is Betty Saar. And Betty Saar is an assemblage artist. Interestingly, she also started out in the area of enamel. And so I feel a very strong kinship to her. Her themes are similar to mine, family history, contextualizing family history in the larger context of American history. Also, her work on memory and on Black womanhood, I find very intriguing. I could look at her work. Again, she's someone that each time I look at her pieces, I see something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder if we have audio for Gloria. Gloria, can you unmute? And I would love to hear from you as well. I think we're just getting an echo and you're still on mute, Gloria. Unfortunately, we're not able to hear from you yet.
Okay, so what about now?
We've got an echo because we get both the phone and the computer audio simultaneously. So I think maybe the phone has to go in order for us to hear the computer. You're muted on the computer. Okay.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay. My influences in terms of art come from gospel music and just living life in a rural South and the kind of rhythms that come along with that. I would say the second thing is, again, I've mentioned the fact of growing up when it was, you know, being Black is beautiful and Africa was a thing, so it was a big thing in terms of arts and stuff. African textiles. I really like the patterns in African textiles and the colors. African sculpture. Those are the things that influence. As I have kind of lived, the other thing that I recognize, I tried to do quilting. My grandmother was a quilter. And I tried to do quilting. At about the same time that I was trying to do the quilting, I went to an aviary in Miami, and I started looking at the birds and looking at the pattern of the colors on the birds. And in my mind, it seemed as if it was the closest thing to the patterns that you see, the irregular and yet beautiful and bold colors that you see in, like, say, the kente cloth. Or if you look at some of the Kuba cloths, the patterning of it, it's just very unusual, and it's very, in some respects, it's just kind of unnatural. So those are the things that influence my kind of aesthetic.
Yeah,
so
those are wonderful. So I'm hearing just a whole host of different influences, from popular culture, dance, music, to fine arts. And also, thank you, Gloria, for also speaking about craft and folk art, those influences as well. So as we think about those historical influences, I'm also very curious to hear, what do you think are some of the most interesting things that are happening within the Black arts community in Worcester right now? What's going on now that some of our listeners would like to hear about? What do you think is most interesting? And again, I open this up to anyone who'd like to jump in.
What's going on now in Worcester, or just what's going on in general?
Well, you can broaden it to be in general. I was thinking about Worcester in particular, but if you have influences from other areas outside of the region, that would be great to hear about as well, in terms of Black creativity that's happening now. Well,
I think that in general, there has been I would say an explosion of Black art. And I know that when you look on the auctions, like if you start to look at auctions recently, there's been a significant increase in the pricing for Black art. Swan galleries, they do this, they do a biannual auctions, and the prices of the works are just increasing. There's also this other site called Black Art in America. And again, he started back in like about 10 years ago. And it has just grown in terms of his sales, in terms of the things that has grown out of that. And I do think that with the urban art, if you will, with the murals, I mean, that is just something that is going on in Worcester now, and is going on across the country. Just seems like a recent. I mean, that it seems like within the last 10 years, again, it has just been this explosion and stuff. And so, so that's, those are my thoughts.
Absolutely.
There was an artist that, there was a Black artist who did the statue of the, down in Virginia. There was an unveiling of that statue where the, I believe the old war general was.
Robert E. Lee Monument.
Which one?
Robert E. Lee.
Yes. Now that was exceptional too. Speaking of just Black artists, because when I read the article on him, they paid him 6 figures for that, and then they opted to buy 2 more.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, Gloria, so there's a significance of money being involved, and the prices have gone up exceptionally. Now, referring to Worcester, because of COVID, I'm not so certain how much quote unquote Black art, although I've seen a few more Black artists in the town of Worcester than I have over the past few years come out. I like to say that, considering that the gentleman that I work with, we are somewhat responsible for a large part of the murals that went up in Boston, went up in Worcester. And I have to allot a lot of that to Ferg. And he's Spanish. He's of Latin descent, entirely Puerto Rican. And when it comes to the Black and Browns, I believe we've been able to work pretty good hand in hand with one another. At least I like to attribute that much.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think what you were referring to, I first stated Robert E. Lee because I was thinking of the monument there, but the response to that monument was work done by Kehinde Wiley, and I think that's what
Yes.
you're referencing.
Yes.
William.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. That gentleman right there, because that statue went up, because I know someone in Virginia personally who was at the opening and unveiling for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the pictures before the pictures pretty much hit before the news had it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nicole, did you want to add to the conversation as well? What are some of the interesting things that are happening within the arts now, either in Worcester or beyond?
Yeah, to kind of mirror what William was saying about and also Gloria about the mural work, that BLM mural was historical. What happened that day, the amount of Black and Brown artists it brought together, just the amount of folks from all over the community that came out to show support, and also the layout and design of that mural. I really want to note how much that illustrates the Black experience in America. And I've seen a lot of the BLM murals from other cities, and I feel that Worcester, like, we really did something incredible. From start to finish, you really see every piece, every intricacy, every vulnerability that happens when you're Black in this country. It's sad that such an atrocity had to happen for this city to say, hey, do you guys want to create a piece of public art together? It's like, we've been here. And it's sad that many of us didn't know each other before that, because, we all work in our own sectors and don't often have opportunities to come together and just create with one another in such a really special way. The amount of young Black artists that are emerging in this city is remarkable. I'd like to give a huge shout out and a nod to my friend George Anand, who is an incredible young photographer. And he's trending globally right now. He's literally in global campaigns for Converse. And most people in this city, unless you know George, you probably don't know about him. And, I think that is just, one example of why we need to do more often for the Black artists that live in this city, because there's incredible stuff happening, but a lot of people don't have resources. What's going on over at the bridge is, I don't even have words for it. That is all community coming out, volunteering their time, volunteering resources, just to help save a space that has really given us space to be ourselves and to create the kind of art that we want to. No slight at, ArtsWorcester or other fine arts galleries, but there's so many of us, especially those of us that are millennial Black artists, that, most of the art that we create, we've never felt like it's, gallery worthy, because it's an amalgam of the art, music, fashion, all the things that we grew up taking influence from, and it makes our art so unique and kind of in another like subcategory of its own that places like the Bridge give us that space to just go in as we are and present our art and not have it be kind of scrutinized and questioned. It's just like, if you're an urban artist, like, come here with your graffiti, come here with your weird mixed mediums, your like strange performance art installations, whatever you're doing, like Polaroid photos, whatever, like, you have this space. And the fact that that space is in danger says we have more work to do as a community to protect the sanctuary of Black art here in Worcester.
I'd like to jump off of what Nicole just said, because I think what she said is very important and very powerful. I guess a couple of things. One of the things that has struck me is how our rights movements have always run in parallel to our arts movement. And but that said, unless they also have been largely disregarded by more mainstream venues, more mainstream, I guess it's acceptance is what might be the word that I'm looking for. And yet, what encompasses Black art is so much more than art that hangs on the wall. Our work has often been work that involves craft, that involves functional materials, that involves how we present ourselves in terms of clothing and so forth. And yet the traditional art world has what has always struck me as a very narrow definition of what art is. And Black art pushes those boundaries in terms of materials, in terms of subject matter, in terms of place, and a whole host of other things. And it is only during these uprisings, if you will, that there's attention paid to it. And that to me is very unfortunate. The last kind of creative blossoming from in my lifetime was during the Black arts movement that Gloria referenced. Gloria and I are of a generation and have the same memory of the arts movement in the 60s and 70s that largely fell from public attention until very recently. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to at one point try to do a show at the old ArtsWorcester, and then talking with the artists and stuff, and we were trying to think of, well, what is it going to be called? And at one point I said, it could be called outsider art. And they're like, oh no, you can't associate it with that. I said, but like Jennifer was saying, in actuality, it is always been outside of the accepted and the main and the kind of mainstream. And that's been one of the biggest issues, one of the biggest challenge, one of the largest challenges is to kind of foster an appreciation for various aesthetics. Mm-hmm. And that's, and the only way and one of the ways that can be done is it has to be by exposure. And I do think that conversations such as these and
I think we have a little bit of a screen freeze.
Yeah, exposure.
All right. There was a little bit of breakup, but I think we got most of what you were saying, Gloria. And really, maybe to move on or segue from some of these really great comments, I have to ask, what do you think happens as a result, or what do you hope happens as a result of today's conversation? And again, this is for anyone on any of the panelists. What do you hope comes out of this conversation? What would you like to see to be the next things that occur?
I don't know, but I know one thing. What I hope for is a bit more cohesiveness. Because if we are out here trying to save the bridge, if we're out here trying to save Black culture, or we out here wanting to have the conversation about what Black art means to me, and you have no place to point it out to someone, you have no place to take someone to see it, it needs to be in your phone because it's so far away, that means that it's not happening right here. And to not have it happening right here means that there isn't enough of a stronghold, enough of any part of real participation in making it come to fruition. I'm doing the best I can. I got a team of brothers with me, and we're doing the best that we possibly can. And can I please go back to Nicole? Now, Nicole, you did the letter B in Black Lives Matter, right?
I sure did.
And that was based on that was African colorway, I believe,
Yeah.
wasn't it, Gloria? So that there, I believe, struck me because that came from Do the Right Thing. I believe it was, right?
It sure did.
And Do the Right Thing was filmed on my block in Bedford-Stuyvesant. So I was looking at my brother and Spike Lee sitting on the stoop. I have a picture of my brother and my niece sitting on the stoop with Spike Lee on my grandmother's house. And that also reverts back to the question that Toby had asked earlier about like being able to try to separate life from art. Like it's hard because as soon as the Black Lives Matter mural went up, not only did it go up as far as Black Lives Matter, Nicole took me home about what she did. She took me home to my front stoop, 178 Stuyvesant Avenue. So I remember what was going on when that movie was being filmed. I was there to watch them paint that Mike Tyson mural on that wall because it wasn't there before the movie. It wasn't. A lot of things were not there until a big enough participation of Black artists were involved. On whatever magnitude or medium it came in, it had to be a big enough movement or momentum in order for it to happen. That Mike Tyson mural was on the corner of my block ever since.
I think we lost your
Audio for a
I have
second.
to say, it's a Black experience, and I don't really want to like convolute the answer to the question, but I believe it's all of that, and we need participation. I'm asking for participation. I'm out there all the time. My brothers are out there all the time. We want to talk about Black art. I've been a Black artist all my life. So I'm asking, please, you want to see more? Let's not only just open up the conversation, but let's open up our eyes and I guess open up our doors to see which way we can walk and what doors we can walk into or something. Like come down and participate, like somebody talk to somebody. We've been trying to have meetings with the mayor. It keeps getting postponed. Like, I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, my name is in this stuff. So I'm hoping that one of you ladies or someone else has a better answer or better way of bringing us, you know, some cohesiveness here, please.
No, I think you're holding it up just fine, William.
Yeah,
Other
doing good.
responses from the panelists. What other things would you like to see come of this? What would you like to see happen next?
To mirror what William was saying about, you know, the piece that I had done bringing him back home, something that's always bothered me is that it's usually people that don't look like us that are benefiting the most off of our creations.
Uh-oh.
And, and so it was really important for me to take that film and put that into my design, because
Mm-hmm.
for those that have not seen that film, it ends in one of the main characters his life being taken at the hands of police brutality. And it just,
Look at that.
yeah.
Okay, then. So, right, this has been an ongoing situation.
It's been an ongoing situation
forever.
And
film and everything. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, like, what's new? Like, no, this has been happening. Where we at now? This has been happening.
Yeah.
Where are we right now?
It's been happening, and we have been suffering for a very, very, very long time, for centuries. And it's crazy to me that in 2020, we're having a panel like this, which I think is amazing, but that we're having to talk about the fact that, we still are outsiders. And yet, look at any runway, look at any popular, influencer, look at TikTok. Black dance is all over TikTok. But look at the people that are making the most money off of TikTok. They aren't the people that have created those dances. People will drag Megan the Stallion through the mud, but are all up on TikTok trying to learn dances to her songs or making her song trend to the top of Spotify. It's like, it's beyond just giving us an opportunity to create one thing. It's about respecting us and allowing us to profit off of the things that we're creating, instead of taking them, which has happened for so long, and then making your own version of it, and we get left with nothing. And then posthumous, we see people who aren't even getting to reap the rewards of the art that they've created. Look at
That's what happened to H&M. That's what happened to H&M, Nicole. Okay, H&M, check it out. New York City, there was a place called 5 Points where all artists.
I remember, I lived right down the street from 5 Points.
Check it out. So 5 Points got tore down. The developers brought the building, tore it down, and then put the pictures of the graph that was on the building inside, and then they got sued for that too.
Yep.
I'd like to answer to just add something to your question, Toby. I would like to see these kinds of conversations continue. I think they're critically important both within the arts community and external to the arts community. I also hope that the work that's going on at the Bridge becomes more recognized. I also hope that some of our mainstream anchor institutions begin to look at more seriously and consider the work of Black artists, other artists of color, and local artists as they think about their contributions to the community. For me, that's critically important.
Thank you, Jennifer. Critically.
Yes, critically.
And I'm going to have to jump in right now because we are literally 1 minute away from ending. That was a very fast hour, but it was an exciting conversation. I want to thank all the panelists this evening for your input. And of course, as was said, this really could be a conversation that we could be having again and again and again. I would like to thank our viewers for joining us and for ArtsWorcester for sponsoring this conversation. And we will end now. So thank you all for being with us. Appreciate your participation, and good night.
Thank you, Toby.
Good night, Toby. Good night, ladies.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for being there.